Welcome to TiffDoesLoans Podcast. Today I have Justin with the DFW HomeBuyer. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me here.
Yes, thank you for joining. Justin has just been blowing up his social media. He is in Dallas, Texas. So we definitely ended up crossing paths, and he has a very specific niche, in this real estate industry. So I wanted to invite him on here and kind of go in more detail. So Justin, why don't you just get started, and how did you get into real estate, kind of your journey?
Yeah. So about 4 years ago, I was approached by a good friend of mine who had been doing real estate solo for a while. And he said, "Hey, man, I think you should work with me." I was 6 years in at that point into another sales career, and I was ready for a transition. So the timing just kind of presented itself at a good time. And he had kind of paved the way for what he was doing, what the success had been. I jumped on board with him. Fast forward 4 years now, we've purchased a few hundred homes together, and we do a little bit of everything, whether it's owner finance or fix and flip, rentals, short-term rentals, long-term rentals, wholesaling, wholetailing. But then more specifically, about the last 12 months, we've really gotten into what we call curative title, which I know we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of that here on this call. But that was my introduction into real estate, was just jumping on board with him. I've done the wholesale acquisition side of things for a few years. So just meeting with sellers face to face in their homes, and naturally the curative title side of things just presented itself.
And so when you say, so can you kind of explain what that niche is? So you're going to be assisting, kind of solving the problem, right, of people that have messy title issues or air issues?
Yeah. So oftentimes, especially in off-market real estate, we'll get a phone call from somebody saying, "Hey, I'm interested in selling a property." Well, we go meet with them and get a contract signed. Come to find out, they think that they have the right to sell the property, but it turns out they're only 25% owner of the property. So part of the battle is helping them understand why they don't have the full right to sell the property. But then the other part of the battle is, okay, well, who else does? And how do we get in touch with them? How do we get everybody on the same page so that we can actually be able to purchase this property? And what that has created is the avenue for helping people put the pieces of the puzzle together to be able to sell a property. But then it also created an opportunity where we said, "Hey, instead of waiting for these to come to us, why don't we go to those and go find them in the first place?" Because what can ultimately happen is you can end up owning a property for pennies on the dollar, like 20 cents or less on the dollar, if you approach it the right way. And so that's what we started getting into. And the specific thing that I will do is I will go look at the Dallas County tax records, or Tarrant County, which is Fort Worth, tax records, and I will purposely look for properties that have a substantial amount of back taxes. I will cross-reference that with who is on title. So if I see the words "et al." Or "estate of" on title for the home, I know that the county knows that this person has passed away, but no, it has not been deeded formally to somebody else, at least probably not from a publicly recorded standpoint. And so then I will go figure out who's in the property or who has made the most recent tax payments. And I'll start calling people and asking questions. And a lot of times what we'll find out is grandmother passed away, home was inherited by her 4 kids. One of those 4 kids has already passed away, which means their heirs now take their place. And it just creates these massive family trees that nobody knows how to solve, at least in the family. So nobody's doing anything. And then back taxes are accruing because no one wants to take responsibility. And that's where I'll step in and start asking some questions.
Yeah. That is so wild. But it's and when you think of that, what a creative kind of niche to get into when you were first explaining it to me, because it is a need. A lot of people don't they don't know what to do with it. So,
Yeah.
and that's going to be, is that when they're in like they're not in probate. So at this point, everyone's just like not doing anything. Do you kind of help with that situation, or do you have to wait for that?
So most of the time, these properties are not in a current probate situation. Okay. Probate can complicate things for our purposes.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that we can't work with those people, but chances are, if there's this many problems, it's because there is not a probate currently happening, or had already happened. And so that's why these people are finding themselves in these positions. The reality is, a lot of the homes that we end up purchasing, somebody died without a will. There is no will present, and so it gives credence as to how important wills can be. But it's amazing how often people die without wills, and the family that inherits the property just simply doesn't know what to do, so they don't do anything. And that's where I'll go look at the Dallas County probate records, and I'll see if there is a active probate case going on. And then I'll even go look and see who has been appointed executor. I'll call them and ask questions, because that person has the authority to make some decisions. In fact, I'll tell you a story. We have a property where there was 3 heirs to the deceased party. One of the heirs was named the executor in the estate from the probate results. Okay, that happened a few years ago. Well, fast forward a few years, and they had been keeping up with the property taxes, but then they stopped. And there was one heir in Fort Worth, another heir that lived in the home in Fort Worth, and then another heir in New Mexico. What I did is I put together the situation to understand what was going on with the home, what the back taxes were, who was in the home, all that. I then go call the brother in New Mexico, because I'm telling myself, okay, he's disinterested. Obviously, he's interested from a legal standpoint, but he's disinterested, meaning he's not in Fort Worth. He doesn't live in the home. Let me just call him and see what he has to say. Well, I end up having a phone conversation with him, and by the end of the phone call, he goes, man, I just want out of this scenario. I don't want anything to do with it. I asked him, I said, can I pay you $500 for a general warranty deed in exchange for your seat at the table? He accepted. We had a notary go meet with him. We now own and still do his portion of ownership in the home. That $500 is its fair market value is about $65,000 based on what the property is currently worth. And so now what we're doing is we're going to the executor of the estate, and we're trying to make him a proposal, because as executor, he has the authority to make a decision. So there's more nuance to that specific story, but those are the types of things that can transpire even if something has gone through probate.
And then when you say, what do you mean by like you have a seat at the table? So now do you have like kind of a part ownership in it?
We do. We literally, so there, picture a pie, right?
Yeah.
These 3 brothers own a third of that pie. We bought one of those thirds. We didn't just buy his ownership in the home. We also bought his rights and his claims, which is important because if we wanted to, we would have the right to go basically make a claim that the other brother, who's the executor of the estate, has mismanaged the estate. And we have the right to, because we bought the rights and claims of brother number 3 in New Mexico. Yeah.
Okay. Does that guy, the one that gave you his seat, because you said like $500, does he get like a payout later of something?
Nope. We bought him out for $500. That's it.
Oh, so he just like,
he said we gave him a $500 check. He signed the paperwork. We got it all notarized and everything, and he's done. He's away from the transaction now.
Okay. And then what's the ultimate goal? So when you're doing this for you, is it to sell it? So you want to get them out of it as well.
So
do
ultimately,
they get a piece of it?
Ultimately, I mean, everybody's going to get something, right? We can't just take the property. And so we're making proposals to the other brothers on what they want to do. What's interesting about this one, and I brought it up because you had brought up probate. The brother that lives in the home is not the executor. Okay. It's the other brother that lives in Fort Worth that's the executor. And the other brother could make a decision to sell the property that would affect the brother in the home, but the brother in the home is still a beneficiary. So he would still get proceeds from the sale if that was the case. So we have some different angles we can approach with this
Mm,
situation in particular, because we can buy out brother that's in the home, in which case we would own 66%, but the other brother is still the executor. So we're going to have to figure out something with him eventually. And the settlements could be of ranging amounts. We could pay one person 500, another 5,000, and another 15,000 if we really wanted to. So basically what it'll come down to is we have this cost analysis of, does it make more sense to just buy people out, even if it's a little bit more than we wanted to spend?
yeah.
Or do we aggregate 66% ownership, and we just go to market with the other guy and not continue going down this path from a legal perspective? And we just take the money that we've already put into it, cut our losses, sell the property, and then just roll into the next one.
Just get, yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely a niche there, but like it's, you're solving a problem, and like I could totally understand that standpoint of just like I want to be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of people, especially like me, I love real estate, you know what I mean? So it's different. Like I would want to be involved, but if it's someone that's like, no, just take it. So it's definitely, I mean, to find the right people for it.
From a
And then,
strategic standpoint, that's
yeah,
why we would go find the error that is not in the property. So I
yeah,
purposely found the one. I looked at the situation. I say,
yeah,
who seems like they might care the least? I'm going to
yeah,
call that person first.
100%. And obviously the guy out of state. Yeah.
Right.
Just like take it from my hands. And earlier you said something, and we've talked about this before, but the wholesale, I feel like what do you mean by that? So it's like not wholesale. Yeah. Is that
So
like your own lingo, or is that like that you
I,
were the first person that I've ever heard say that? So I'm obsessed with it.
I did not make it up, but it's something that I do, and I have heard other people use it. It's basically a hybrid of wholesale pricing, retail exit strategy. So
Okay.
what we'll do is, like, I actually just walked a property yesterday in Cedar Hill, which is on the south side of Dallas, and we contracted low enough to where we can go, but it's in good enough condition, which I think is a key indicator in wholesale. You
Yeah.
buy it low, you buy it at wholesale numbers, but then you don't go renovate. I mean, you do a little bit. For
Yeah.
this property, we're replacing some fans, we're replacing a couple carpets. We're doing a deep clean, some landscaping, and throwing it back on the market. So all in cost from a renovation standpoint might be like $5,000 or hopefully less. And then we're going to put it on the market and undercut everybody else on price in the neighborhood. So if the new homes or renovated homes in that neighborhood are selling for 250, I might come in at like 220 and just appeal to the buyers that are looking for something priced a little bit more competitively in that neighborhood. The strategy is do as little as possible, as quickly as possible, put it back on the market, be in and out of it in 30 to 45 days, and then just velocity of capital, rolling that into the next deal.
Wow.
Did this with a property in Haltom City a couple months ago, and it worked really well, simply because it was a solid asset and it was livable, although it was dated. And there's always somebody out there looking for something that's competitively priced. So I think that's the ultimate strategy with wholesale, is undercutting on price, but having it
Yeah.
be livable is the key indicator.
But for this one, for that strategy, you would kind of need a home that's still in pretty good condition, right? Like, because wholesale, I know a lot of them, you guys just take foundational issues and stuff like that. But so you would still have to, not every property would kind of qualify for that, right?
No, they won't.
Yeah. You have to
The
kind of get
one,
one.
yeah, there is one that I am also doing in Dallas. That's we closed last week, but there's a tenant still in there until next week. It does need quite a bit more work. That one's a little bit riskier of a proposition.
Yeah.
The reason I'm taking a stab at it is because it's a big brick home in an area where there's a high desire for people to be able to have a home at a lower price point. So it's definitely a fixer upper, but it's going to be the biggest home on the block, and it's going to be priced below anything else. So I think naturally it's going to get the eyes of people looking to
Yeah.
buy in that neighborhood. Yeah.
As long as it's priced well for the neighborhood. Okay, yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
an awesome strategy. And then, yeah, I just love all of your content. Like, you're always educating. I absolutely just love that in this market when, we're, especially the investors or realtors or whoever is, putting that education together. So that's kind of where I found you. And I know you do mentor. So now you're kind of mentoring. Like, how do you kind of appeal or teach, for newer investors coming in? Yes, this is more niche-y, but like, how do you kind of get them to go that way or kind of pick the right one for them?
So in any like one-on-one mentorship thing I'm going to do, it's pretty intensive. So the price is, commensurate with the type of attention that I'm going to give it. But I don't mind giving a bunch of free information. I think it's a really important thing to do if you want to establish yourself as knowing what you're doing in that specific niche of real estate. Then you have to be able to give some things away for free, right? To at least get people's attention. The concepts that we do and that I talk about on a regular basis are relatively simple, but they're just hard to execute on for a few reasons. A, you have to have the willingness to start picking up the phone and calling people. You have to know who to look for before you start calling. And then if somebody says, you know what, yeah, I'll take that proposition, pay me $1,000 and I'll walk away, you have to have $1,000 here and there to be able to buy people out. It sounds crazy, but every day I have people that reach out to me regarding real estate that barely have 2 nickels to rub together in their bank account. So you have to be careful. And even if you don't have the money, you partner with somebody like me that could go in on the deal with you if you're willing to do the work to find the property in the first place. So there's some, even if it's not like a full-on like mentorship or one-on-one type of thing, there's still plenty of opportunities to partner with me or someone like me that is doing this, that's willing to put up the money and figure things out from a legal perspective if you can bring the leads and source the leads in the first place. So there's that angle of it, but finding these leads is incredibly simple. You just got to start with the county tax office website, the public record website, and then those are both free. On top of that, you can have some relatively cheap resources like Landglide, which is a great one. And then also Skip Trace or Skip Genie. So you can go find names and phone numbers affiliated to addresses. But between Google and the county tax records, county property records, Landglide, and Skip Tracing, that's everything I need to put basically a file together on a property.
And that's almost like free.
Yeah, you're talking
for the most part. Yeah.
Google and county tax records, those are free. Landglide, I think, is $10 a month or $100 a year. And then Skip Trace is like $30 a month. So yeah, you're talking less than $50 a month for everything you need.
That's so good. And I do like for investors, like to be able to get out there, it's just really about like executing and, anything in real estate takes a long time or, could just like setting that expectation that like, look, might be tight for a little bit, but once you get the ball rolling, I feel like, and you're working for, I guess yours, you would get paid out a little faster. Or could these possibly take months?
Oh yeah. I'm glad you asked that because, sorry, there was a train going by. So there is scenarios where we're in and out of a property in 30 days. There's scenarios where we're in and out in 3 years, and anything and everything in between. It just depends on how complicated the situation is. So if you call on a property and you find out, hey, there's only 3 heirs, they're all interested in selling, that's probably a path where I'm going to look at it and say, okay, there's a clear path to a resolution that should not take very long, unless one of the heirs is just fighting tooth and nail. But then if you look at a property, I'll tell you a real story. There was one I called on the other day, guy's living in the house. He has 8 siblings. 4 of them have passed away. They all have kids. He was under the impression, I don't know why, but he was under the impression that the deceased siblings don't matter anymore. And it's just him and his 3 remaining living siblings. I said, no, sir, I'm sorry. All of those heirs own a portion of the property. And I think I blew his mind and overwhelmed him when I told him this. But I look at that scenario and I say, okay, this could take months even to just contact everybody, much less come to resolutions. That's a lot of people involved. So there had to be significant meat on that bone to go down that path. So that's why it's important when you start researching these properties, you don't get stuck in the rabbit hole or down the rabbit hole of doing an hour of research before you start calling people, because it could be a dead end or not worth it.
Different. Yeah.
Like
or completely different. Like you didn't know
there was something else.
Something passed away. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So can you see that? Like, did you know that already, that 4 of them passed away, or was that talking to him?
It was talking to him. So what I did is, it was his mom's house. I found her obituary, and it referenced that she left behind 8 kids. He was one of them. He lived in the home. So I called him and I just said, hey, I see that there's back taxes. I see that the property was in your mom's name. What's going on? Then he started to spill the beans on what was going on with the parties that had passed away already. And that's where I started to look at the scenario and say, this might not be one worth going down, because it's going to be a lot. But I think the key takeaway here is I figured out everything within 5 minutes, and then just started calling and asking questions. Because if I had gone down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out everybody that passed away before I called him, I could be 45, 60 minutes into a dead end, and I'm just wasting time that could be better spent elsewhere.
100%. And that's where you come in as a mentor, because you could kind of, you know, just like in all of our industries, it just always helps to have that person like, look, if this happens, like get out, you know, like we can give them like exit strategies. Like if you stop, if it's, you know, because we, even in the loans, like we kind of have our like hard stop type things. And then, so you do a lot of these. What about, so tell me a little about like the Dallas market right now. So are you doing anything else in this type of market? So is that kind of your full, you know, is that something that you kind of filled the time with? And are you still like fix and flips are pretty hot there right now, right?
They are. So for the last 4 years, I've been heavily involved in the wholesale acquisition side of things. I have recently stepped away from that and fully into curative title. And I'm doing some of the wholesale flips here and there, just whenever the property makes sense to do so. So exclusively, that's what I'm on at this point, is curative title and the wholesale flips, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on project management. You know, I've gotten to a point in my career where I basically assess, hey, what can I make per hour working on this project? And if it doesn't pass a certain threshold, I just don't do it, because I don't want to compromise the time. An hour of my time is worth something to me, and I have to make sure I'm spending it accordingly. So that's what I've exclusively gone to now, is wholesale flips and curative title.
And then what in Dallas, right? Like, what are the ranges that we're looking at for the prices?
So, you know, like
what
the one
would
in
be
Fort
like
Worth,
a decent kind of area? Like if you were just kind of like the average person kind of moving over there.
Most of what we deal with is well under $500,000 as far as our entry price and the resale price. So we're dealing with lower price point homes, mostly in the suburbs of Dallas, on the south side of Dallas and Fort Worth, where, you know, it's not uncommon for us to fully own a property for less than $100,000 and then be able to resell that property, you know, for 200 plus. So that's kind of our area or dollar amount that we stick to, is that range.
So, so they're probably like in between like 2 and 500,000 is kind of,
as far as resale value. Yes. Yeah. That's what we're sticking to. It's the asset class that we know best. And just full transparency, the reality is the lower price point homes are typically the scenarios where there's people that have passed away without wills, larger families. That is what ends up being the case more often than not. So those are where the problems that need to be solved tend to find themselves down there. That's just the reality.
And the older homes and like older homes.
Exactly. Yeah. Older homes, older areas. That's where there's been multiple generations that have inherited properties, and that's where we step in.
All right. And okay, so final question here, kind of looking ahead now that you're more into this niche and also leaning into the education and the mentorship. Do you do mostly like one-on-ones? How would they like reach out to you if somebody was interested? Oh, I do have one more question also on that. Are you able to do this from anywhere? Like, do they have to be in Dallas with you,
Nope.
or can you get them in their area that they're currently in?
Yeah, so you do not have to be in DFW. You don't have to be in the market that you're working in. I know DFW the best, and I know Texas second best.
Yeah.
But these concepts apply nationwide. But if somebody was watching this recording in Kansas and they say, you know what, I want to learn what Justin's doing, I have plenty of things that they can do without ever even leaving their house or their office, right?
Love
And this is stuff you can do behind the computer or even on the phone to figure some stuff out. There's a huge opportunity for just identifying the properties and saying, hey, Justin, I found this property at 123 Main Street. I'm interested in learning from you. If you want to take the lead on it and give me a JV profit split on the back end, and you just teach me how to do it, I am all for that. And I think that's
awesome.
That's the $0 entry into working together on something. If somebody was wanting something more intensive, like, no, Justin, the proof is in the pudding. I want to learn exactly what you do on a regular basis. Can I work with you one-on-one? I have something for that as well. So it just depends on what the situation is.
I love that you offer that other one as well. Cause some people do just need to like some people are pretty good to where they kind of know, but they just need to see it, kind of do that quick shadow and like kind of get their feet wet maybe for a couple and then be on their own. Like me personally, I would have to take the whole thing. Like I would want the whole course just because my brain is a little slower. So I'd be like, I want to know everything from A to Z. But
so I'm actually working on a school community as well. I have a phone call with the guy that's helped me put that together. So I'll have a free course that's in there as well. That's kind of the basics, 1, 2, 3 of getting into these types of deals. So people can access that as well.
Okay, awesome. And I will have that link below. So, and all of Justin's information below as well on the YouTube video. So feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe. And Justin, thank you so much for joining me today. And yeah, thank you. It was a great conversation.
Tiffany.
Thanks.
All right. We'll talk later.
Bye.